guys! Look at my hands. It's so small. Alright. Again, I just need to edit the stream info or the title. Oh my gosh! Hello, Mohe Games! Oh my gosh, how are you? I'm fine. This is my second stream for today. I couldn't show you, but I'm standing straight. So yeah, Mohe Games. Oh, that's why. Yeah, this is my second stream for today. Actually, I've already streamed this, I guess, last night, but apparently Twitch muted the audio. So when I was reading, it suddenly gets muted. So the other parts of the book. Oh, feedback. Oh no. I'll need to check. Just wait a moment. Shoot. Sorry. I'll need to check first. It's probably now it's a windy one. Oh my gosh. Holy knuckles. Cause my phone, I'm only phone overheats and just stops streaming. Oh my gosh, it's still I guess and the dogs are barking. Holy knuckles. It just does that. Sorry guys. I need better equipment aside from my phone. Add this with the nuts. Oh no. Is it gone? Is it gone? I'm gonna be gone. Alright. That's nice. Thank you. Alright, so yep. Oh my gosh. So just wanna share to you guys a hobby that I want to build, which is to read. Read as much as we could this year, I guess. Because that's a great habit. Habit. Habit? Habit, right? Reading. And it also expands the vocabulary and trains us how to speak. Well, me, because I'll be reading it to you guys. So it's gonna try to train me how to speak a little bit better. So I kind of adjusted the setup that I have for this so that you'll be able to see the book as I read it, okay? So, yeah. This is the episode 1. That's what I put on the title, I guess. Let's read The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto. So yeah, let's start. Although I've already tried to read it on the last stream, I'll need to repeat it again. Oh my gosh. Okay. The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto by Mitch Albom, of course. Also, these are the other books that I want to purchase maybe next time after we finish this book. So, yep, let's start. Okay. Hopefully you can read it as well. Alright, I'll sit down and then I'll read it to you guys, okay? So, chapter 1. I have come to claim my prize. He is mighty, but a good musician holds respectfully until the final notes are played. This man's melody is finished, but his mourners have come a great distance to add a few stanzas. A coda of sorts. Let us listen. Heaven can wait. Do I frighten you? I shouldn't. I'm not death, a grim reaper in a hood, reeking of decay. As your young people say, please. Nor am I the great judge whom you all fear at the end. Who am I to judge a life? I have been with the bad and the good. I hold no verdict on the wrongs this man committed, nor do I measure his virtues. I do know a great deal about him. The spells he wove with his guitar, the crowds he enthralled with that deep, breathy voice, the lives he changed with his 6 blue strings. I could share all this, or I could rest. I always make time to rest. Do you think me coy? I am at times. I am also sweet and calming, and dissonant and angry, and difficult and simple, as soothing as poured sand, as piercing as a pinprick. I am music, and I am here for the soul of Frankie Presto. Not all of it, just the rather large part he took from me when he came into this world. However well used, I am alone, not a possession. You give me back upon departure. I will gather up Frankie's talent to spread on newborn souls, and I will do the same with yours one day. There's a reason you glance up when you first hear a melody, or tap your foot to the sound of a drum. All humans are musical. Why else would the Lord give you a beating heart? Of course, some of you get more of me than others. Bach, Mozart, Jobim, Louis Armstrong, Eric Clapton, Philip Glass, Prince, to name a few. To name but a few of your time. In each of their cases, I felt their tiny hands at birth, reaching out, grabbing me. I will share a secret. This is how talents are bestowed. Before newborns open their eyes, we circle them, appearing as brilliant colors. And when they clench their tiny hands for the first time, they are actually grabbing the colors they find most appealing. Those talents are with them for life. The lucky ones, well, in my opinion, the lucky ones choose me. Music. From that point on, I live inside your every hum and whistle, every pluck of a string or plink of a piano key. I cannot keep you alive. I lack such power. But I infuse you. And yes, I infuse the man in the coffin, my mysterious and misunderstood Frankie Presto, whose recent death during a festival concert was witnessed by a sold out crowd, his body lifting to the rafters before dropping to the stage, a lifeless shell. It caused quite a stir. Even today, as they gather in the centuries old basilica for his funeral, people are asking, who killed Frankie Presto? Because no one, they say, dies that way on his own. That is true. Did you know that his first name was actually Francisco? His managers tried to hide that. Frankie, they believed, was more palatable to our American fans. The way young girls would scream it at his concerts. Frankie! I love you, Frankie! I suppose they were right. Shorter names are more suited to hysteria. But you cannot change your past, no matter how you craft your future. Francisco was his real name. Francisco de Assis Pascual Presto. I rather like it. I was there the night it was bestowed. That's right. I know the unknown details of Frankie Presto's birth, the ones historians and music critics, even Frankie himself, always labeled as a mystery. I can share them if you like. Does that surprise you? My willingness to begin with such a coveted story? Well, why delay? I am not one of the slower talents like reason or mathematics. I am music. If I bless you singing, you can do so from your first attempt. Composing? My best phrases often lie in the opening notes. Mozart's Eine kleine Nachtmusik. He burst out laughing when he played that on his fortepiano. It took less than a minute. You want to know how Frankie Presto came into this world? I will tell you. Simple as that. It happened here, in Villarreal, Spain, a city near the sea that was founded by a king more than 7 centuries ago. I prefer to begin everything with a time signature, so let us set this as August 1936 in an erratic 6/5 tempo, for it was a bloody period in the country's history, a civil war. Something was whispered as El Terror Rojo, the Red Terror, was coming to these streets and more specifically to this church. Most of the priests and nuns had already fled to the countryside. I recall that evening well. Yes, I have a memory. No limbs, but endless memory. There was thunder in the skies and rain pouring on the pavement. A young expectant mother hurried in to pray for the child she carried. Her name was Carmencita. She was thinly framed with high cheekbones and thick, wavy hair the color of dark grapes. She lit 2 candles, made the sign of the cross, put her hands on her swollen belly, then doubled over in pain. Her labor had begun. She cried out. A young nun with hazel eyes and small gap between her teeth rushed to lift her up. Tranquila, she said, cupping Carmencita's face. But before the woman could make for the hospital, the front doors were smashed in. The raiders had arrived. They were revolutionaries and militiamen, angry at the new government. They had come to destroy the church, as they had been doing all over Spain. Statues and altars were desecrated, sanctuaries burned to a char, priests and nuns murdered in their own sacred spaces. You would think when such horror occurs, new life would hold frozen in shock. It does not. Neither joy nor terror will delay a birth. The future Frankie Presto had no knowledge of the war outside his mother's womb. He was ready for his entrance, and so was I. The young nun hurried Carmencita to a hidden chamber, up secret steps built centuries earlier. As the raiders destroyed the church below, she laid Frankie's mother on a gray blanket in a corner lit by candles. Both women were breathing quickly, creating a rhythm, in and out. Tranquila, tranquila, the nun kept whispering. The rain rapped the roof like mallets. The thunder was a timpani drum. Downstairs, the raiders set fire to the refectory, and the flames crackled like 100 castanets. Those few who had not fled the church were screaming, high, pleading shrieks, met by lower barking orders of those committing the atrocities. The low and high voices, the crackling fire, whipping wind, drumming rain, and crashing thunder created an angry symphony, swirling to a crescendo, and just as the invaders threw open the tomb of Saint Pasquale, ready to desecrate his bones, the bells above the basilica began to chime, causing all to look up. At that precise moment, Frankie Presto was born. His tiny hands clenched, and he took his piece of me. Am I committing to this tale? I must consider the composition. Is it one thing to tell the story of a birth? Quite another, to tell the whole life. Let us leave the coffin and go outside for a moment, where the morning sun is causing people to squint as they emerge from their cars, parked along the narrow streets. Only a few have arrived so far. There should be many more. By my measure, which is always accurate, Frankie Presto, during his time on Earth, played with 374 bands. You would think that means a large funeral, but everyone joins a band in his life. Only some of them play music. Frankie, my precious disciple, was more than a guitarist, more than a singer, more than a famous artist who disappeared for the good chunk of his life. As a child, he suffered greatly, and for his suffering, he was granted a gift, a set of strings that empowered him to change lives. 6 strings, 6 lives. It is why I suspect this farewell could prove interesting, and why I will stay to hear the mourners speak. Frankie's remarkable symphony, as played by those who knew him. There's also the matter of his strange death, and the shadowy figure who was following him just before it. I want to see this result. Music craves resolution, but for the moment I should rest. So many notes already shared. Do you see those men on the church steps smoking cigarettes? The one in the tweed bowler cap? He is also a musician, a trumpeter. He had nimble fingers once, but he is old now and battles illness. Listen to him for a moment. Everyone joins a band in his life. Frankie was once in his. Water break, guys. So we're just done with chapter 1. And this maybe is the guy that the music told us earlier here on this part. So let's try to read what he has. Okay, just a moment. Alright, well, the music is kind of low. I'll try to make it a little bit. Alright, that's enough, I guess, because maybe Twitch will mute this again. Don't jinx it, please. Alright. Again, the dogs. Please forgive me if the dogs are too noisy. Anyway, they aren't mine, so. Alright, let's go. Ouch. Alright, we have Marcus Belgrave, jazz trumpeter. Marcus Belgrave and his quintet. The Ray Charles Band, sideman with McCoy Tyner, Dizzy Gillespie, Ella Fitzgerald, and others. Let me have a light. Thanks. No, I can't believe it neither. Nobody dies like that, but I'm telling you, Frankie had some strange stuff going on. Magic, voodoo, something. I never told no one this story, but I swear it's true. We were playing a club in Detroit, maybe 1951 or 52, in the part they called Black Bottom. Used to be a nice bunch of clubs there, but after the war it got pretty dicey. Anyhow, we're playing a Friday night. 4 sets. 8, 10, midnight, and 2 a.m. And Frank is with us. Just this skinny teenager playing the guitar. This was way before he made them hit records or even started singing. Shoot, I didn't even know his last name. Just Frankie. He wasn't supposed to be there on account of how young he was, but he never asked for no money. And to the guy who owned the club, that made him 21. You know what I mean? We let him sit in the back, out of the spotlight, his big mop of black hair bouncing in the shadows. At the end of the night, he got a free plate of chicken, and we got us a free guitar player. I know, I'm getting to it. Like I said, the place was low end now. Some bad elements. And at one point we were playing Smokehouse Blues, and the big bearded fellow is sitting in the corner with this pretty young blonde thing who's wearing too much lipstick, maybe trying to look older. Well, something must have happened because the beard jumps up and pushes the girl against the wall. His chair goes flying backward, and he's got a knife to her throat. He's choking her, screaming, calling her every kind of name. Tilly, our piano player, walks straight out the door because that was how he was. Don't want no trouble, Tilly. We used to call him. But the rest of us were riffing on the chords with that frozen kind of look when you don't want to watch, but you can't turn away. It was almost like if we stopped playing, the beard was gonna kill this girl. He's screaming, waving that knife. She's choking, and nobody was doing nothing because this guy was big. Well, next thing I know, Frankie jumps up front and starts playing real loud and fast. He's playing so good, people kinda don't know where to look. And Frankie yells, "Hey!" And the beard looks over and hollers something drunk. But Frankie just plays faster. Me, Tony, and Elroy were trying to keep up, but he's off into something. Fingers moving like they're possessed. "Hey!" Frankie yells again, and he's playing like lightning, still getting every note clear and through. And damn if the guy doesn't turn and point the knife at him now, like he's taking the challenge. "Faster!" The beard grumbles. So Frankie goes faster. Some people start whooping like it's a game. And now Frankie's off Smokehouse and he's on to Flight of the Bumblebee. You know, from that Russian opera. I'm trying to find the notes on my horn, and Elroy is banging the pedal so hard his damn foot's gonna snap off. And again, the guy yells, "Faster!" And we're thinking there's no way on the Lord's earth anyone can play faster than. But before we even finish that thought, Frankie's upped it again, his fingers running from the bottom strings to the top strings so fast I swear a bunch of bumblebees is gonna come flying out of that guitar. He's not even looking at his hands. He's just staring at the guy with his lips kinda open, hair falling onto his forehead, and everyone is clapping now, trying to keep pace with Elroy's beat. And Frankie starts this run from the far end of the neck up to the highest frets, and the beard is damn near hypnotized. And he comes closer for a better look. Frankie's staring at the lipstick girl, and she's staring at him. And then he jerks his head, and she's out there, quick as a bullet. And now the whole place is whooping in, that way crowds do. You know, woo, 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 woo. And the kid squeezes his lips, and he's up the highest notes. Sounds like he's pinching baby birds. It's so damn high, and the beard is by the edge of the stage. And Frankie points the neck right at him, like some kind of machine gun. Bangity, bangity, bang. And then he's gone. Finished. And he whips the guitar over his head, and the whole place is going crazy. Just breathing hard, like, man, that boy can play, and we're glad nobody's dead. And then Frankie races out the door, chasing that girl. But here's the thing. I look at his guitar, and one of the strings has turned blue. I swear, blue as the middle of a flame. I thought to myself, I don't know where this kid come from. Maybe I don't want to know. And that's the end of that. Thank you. How are you guys? Yep, we're just reading books here, just to make a change this year. Hopefully, we could keep it up until the end of the year, or we could like get more books because I only have this one and like two others, I guess, or one other. So, since this is a book that I haven't read or finished reading, I suppose I'd want to share it with you guys. So, for those who are watching, thank you very, very much. And hope you'll get to stick to the end. And if not, or if you're busy, don't worry. Um, if you want to, or definitely I'll upload the highlight of this video so that you'll be, if you want to hear like the book or hear me reading the book, you know, you can just lurk on that or play that stream back. Okay? So next we will start the chapter 2 of this book. Let me just drink some water. Alright, so let's go. Chapter 2. Well, there's a hint. The young blonde girl with too much lipstick would have died had Frankie not done what he did. But he was too young to understand such things, or to even know he possessed such power. My apologies. Up here, on the windowsill. I have been listening to a kitchen radio, playing Blondie's Heart of Glass, into the alley behind the church. Did you ever notice how music sounds different played outdoors? A cello in a garden wedding? A calliope in a seaside amusement park? That's because I was born in the open air, in the breaks of ocean waves, in the whistling of sandstorms, the hoots of owls, and cackles of chewy birds. I travel in echoes. I ride the breeze. I was forged in nature, rugged and raw. Only man shapes my edges to make me beautiful. Which you have done, granted. But along the way, you have made assumptions, like the more silent the environment, the purer I am. Nonsense. One of my disciples, a lanky saxophonist named Sonny Rollins, played his horn for 3 years on a bridge in New York City, his tender jazz melodies wafting between the traffic noises. I would pause there often, on the girders, just to listen. Or my beloved Frankie, born amid the cacophony of ringing bells and clamorous destruction. Remember that night, inside the burning church? Carmencita, Frankie's mother, had to keep her newborn child from crying, lest they be discovered by a murderous militia. So, lying together on the gray blanket, she hummed a song in his ear. It was a melody from the past, well known in the town of Villarreal, written by one of its native sons, my brilliant guitarist, Francisco Tarrega. Carmencita hummed it as purely as any song has ever been hummed, tears falling from her cheeks to the newborn skin. He did not cry. A good thing, since within minutes the raiders had reached the main altar and could be heard destroying everything below. They were drawing closer and would soon ascend the steps. The nun with the hazel eyes and the gap between her teeth was trembling. She knew the new mother could not be moved. She was too weak. There was blood everywhere. She also knew the raiders would kill any nun they discovered. She mouthed a prayer, pulled her tunic off over her head, and pressed her fingers against the flames of the candles, extinguishing the light. Silencio, she whispered. Carmencita halted, the only melody she would ever sing to her son. The song was called Lagrima. It means teardrop. Of course, all these seems incongruous if you only knew Frankie Presto from his most popular years, the late 1950s and the early 1960s, when they called him the next Elvis Presley. And he made records that led to television appearances and raucous concerts, and an iconic photo of him smiling in a tan sports coat and pink collared shirt, leaning out a car window to sign the hand of a pretty brunette. That photo, used by Life magazine, became the cover of his most commercial album, Frankie Presto Wants to Love You. It sold millions of copies and earned him more money than he ever imagined during his childhood days on the poor streets of Villarreal, where men transported oranges and horse-drawn carts. But by that stage of his life, Frankie was an American artist with an American manager, and there was no trace of a Spanish accent in his singing. Even his guitar playing had been pushed to the background. The songs they made him play, quite frankly, were beneath his talent. But I haven't even told you of his first instrument, or the hairless dog, or the girl in the tree, or El Maestro, or the war, or the Django, or Elvis, or Hank Williams, or why Frankie disappeared at the height of his popularity, or how he died, rising over a stunned audience. Frankie's journey, such a rich tale to share. You show interest, that is tempting. I am always tempted by an audience. The cars arrive. The sun climbs above the city. The priest is still dressing in his chambers. There is time, I suppose. Let us jump right in then, as befits a man named Presto. Today, it may be a word you exclaim after a magic trick, but it was once used by composers to signal my quickest tempos, bright, jumpy, and energized. Presto. It also means ready. Are you ready? Here is the rest of my child's story. Chapter 3. Everyone joins a band in this life. You are born into your first one. Your mother plays the lead. She shares the stage with your father and siblings. Or perhaps your father is absent, an empty stool under a spotlight. But he is still a founding member. And if he surfaces one day, you will have to make room for him. As life goes on, you will join other bands, some through friendship, some through romance, some through neighborhoods, school, and army. Maybe you will all dress the same or laugh at your own private vocabulary. Maybe you will flop on couches backstage or share a boardroom table or crowd along a galley inside a ship. But in each band you join, you will play a distinct part, and it will affect you as much as you affect it. And, as is usually the fate with bands, most of them will break up through distance, differences, divorce, or death. Frankie's first band was a duo, Mother and Child. By Lord's good grace, they had not been discovered by the raiders that night and had managed to escape the burning church. But traumatized by the horrific events, the woman moved to the farthest end of town and never spoke of what she endured. There was great distrust in Spain. During those years, you kept your secrets to yourself. Then townspeople walked past. The mother lowered her head, avoiding eye contact. Sorry. "Qué niño más guapo," they would exclaim. "Such a beautiful boy." "Gracias," she would mumble, quickly moving on. The child developed a full head of dark hair. As the months went by, the woman noticed he would turn whenever church bell chimed. Once they passed a street musician playing the flute, and young Francisco held his hands out as if to grab more of me, although he had quite enough already, thank you. He was a normal infant in most ways, except that, for the longest time, he did not cry. He barely made any sound at all. They lived in a one-room flat above a panaderia, and when they went hungry, which was often, the mother would go downstairs and wait for the elderly baker to ask about her quiet baby. She would lower her eyes, and he would sigh sympathetically. "Don't worry, Señora. I am sure he will speak one day," he'd say, and he would give her a plate of rolls soaked in olive oil. Occasionally, she earned money from sewing or washing clothes, but the country was struggling with its crippling war. Money was scarce, and alone with a baby, she could hardly work. Month after month, she barely kept them going. "Go to the church, let them help you," the neighbors said, but she never did. She wanted no part of a church anymore. When Frankie's first birthday arrived, to break the monotony, she carried him to the one paved street in town, Calle Mayor, and into Casa Medina, its largest store, to look at things they would never own. She lingered by the new strollers, wishing she could afford one. The store also featured a wind-up gramophone, and on her way out, she stopped to admire it. The owner, a well-tailored man with a thin mustache, stepped forward, noticing perhaps that she did not wear a wedding ring. He smiled as he put on a new shellac disc. "Listen, please, Señora," he said proudly. The artist on that disc was a Spanish guitar player named Andres Segovia. What he played that morning held the baby Frankie mesmerized. His head tilted, his little hands clenched. And when the song finished, he finally cried, loudly. The baby's voice was as powerful as the grown man's. The owner grimaced. Customers made faces. The embarrassed mother shook him harshly, hissing, "Silencio!" But his piercing noise continued, so loud it could be heard from one end of the store to the other. Another salesman grabbed a piece of candy from a counter dish and pushed it at Frankie's lips to make him stop. But the child waved his hands wildly and cried even louder. Finally, the flustered owner put the gramophone's arm back on the disc. Segovia played again, and Frankie fell silent. "You don't need me to tell you the song. Lagrima." From that day forward, The child was never content. He would cry all the time. No hour was immune. No bed or blanket soothed him. He wailed louder than the roosters or the alley dogs. It seemed he was screaming for something he could never have. Enough! The neighbors would yell out the windows. Give him milk! Make him stop! But nothing seemed to work. Night after night he howled, even as fists banged on the walls and broomsticks pounded on the ceiling. Do something! We need to sleep! No one could recall a baby that loud. Even the baker downstairs ceased giving the mother bread in hopes that they would find someplace else to live. Without aid and with food so scarce, the poor woman was at her wits' end. She didn't sleep. She grew depressed. She ached from hunger, and her health deteriorated. As winter approached, she caught a fever and suffered fits of delirium. She would walk the streets with a red towel around her neck, leaving Francisco to cry alone in the flat. Sometimes she mumbled words she thought were being spoken to her. One cold morning, with nothing to feed the child and no way to stop his shrieking, she carried him to the outskirts of the town, where the Mijares River runs to the sea. She descended a hill to the river bank. A strong wind blew, swirling leaves from the muddy ground. She looked at the child, wrapped in a gray blanket. For a moment he fell silent, and her face softened. But then the distant church bells rang, and his howling resumed. She threw her head back and exhaled a shriek of her own. She flung the baby into the water, and she ran. A mother should never do such a thing, but this woman did, tears falling from her hazel eyes and past her gape-toothed mouth. She ran until her lungs nearly burst, and she did not look back, not on the child, not on the river. A mother should never do such a thing. But this woman was not Frankie's mother. That woman died in the chamber of the church, draped in the tunic of a nun. And that's the end of the second chapter, I guess. Do you guys want more? Do you guys want more? One more? Let's check if this would be a short. Oh gosh. Do you guys want more? I can still read. Although let's check the time. It's past 12. It's midnight. Alright, we can still read this one. It's fine. Alright, so let's read this the part from Clem Dundridge. Backup singer, the Kingtons, the Jordanaires, the Frankie Presto band. How you doing? You with a TV station or something? What time they gonna start this here funeral? Any idea? Me? Nah, I never been to Spain. But I kinda like the music. Huh, you know that song? Who was that? Dang. 3-something. 3-Dog Night. That's it. What kind of stupid name is that? Shoot, I know. Where I live, Funerals never start on time, neither. Greenville now, South Carolina, America. Now, I hadn't seen Frankie in about 20 years. Just lost touch, you know. Most people lost touch with him, right? That's how he was. I didn't even know he was still playing until I heard how he died. Met him? Ha! You ready for this? I met him with Elvis Presley on the Louisiana Hayride Circuit. 1957. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, hell yeah. It's a true story. I don't mind saying it now. I was supposed to keep it quiet until the day Elvis died and the day Frankie died. But they're both gone now, and I'm 82 years old. What am I waiting for? I'm figuring to maybe tell it in the church. Are we allowed to speak during the service? It's Catholic, isn't it? Maybe they don't let you. Right now? Tell you what, you let me have some of that coffee you're sipping. I will. Thank you. Much obliged. Okay, so this is what happened. I was singing those days with the Jordanaires, which was Elvis' backup group. A lot of guys came in and out of the Jordanaires over the years, mostly gospel singers. Some of them was ministers who eventually went back to the church. I was with them just a brief stretch, but during that time, Elvis was catching fire. Every show was bigger than the last. Now Frankie looked a lot like Elvis. There's no denying that. They both had them toothy smiles and all that hair, real dark, although Elvis was dyeing his. Its natural color was more like reddish brown, and Frankie was a little taller and a little skinnier. But in those days, nobody knew Frankie could do anything besides play guitar. I'm not even sure how he got to Louisiana. Someone said he came from Detroit in the trunk of a car. Seriously. But he kept to himself and didn't smoke or carouse. And if you don't do that in a band, there ain't hardly time to get to know you. So anyhow, this one afternoon, we're at the Shreveport Municipal Auditorium. That's where they taped the Louisiana Hayride, a real big radio program down there. And we're doing our sound check for that night's show. And Elvis was out with a girl somewhere doing who knows what. Colonel Parker, Elvis' manager, was so angry he was ready to jerk a knot in someone's tail. The colonel ran a tight ship, and he hated anyone being late, even Elvis. We waited 5 or 10 minutes. He kept looking at his watch. And finally he screamed, "Play something, let's get going." Well, he didn't cross the colonel. No, sir. So the band just started into the show's first number. I want you, I need you, I love you. And the Jordanaires did our background parts. But of course, without Elvis, it sounds kind of stupid. Just a lot of woo, woo. And you can feel the colonel's anger from 100 feet away. His face is getting all red. He keeps looking at the doors, pacing back and forth. And suddenly, we hear a voice singing the words, you know? And it sounds like Elvis, except it's Frankie, up on the mic. He's singing it perfectly. And I look at the other guys, thinking the colonel's gonna string this kid up. imitating Elvis in front of the boss? I mean, you don't just do something like that. The colonel stares real hard, pushes his jaw out, and bites on that cigar he always had in his mouth. And I'm thinking, nice working with you, Frankie. But the colonel doesn't stop him. We finish the song, and all he says to the sound guy is, "Are we done here?" So we walk off, kinda shaking our heads, and I remember Hoot, the piano player, he handed Frankie a beer right after that. And when Frankie asked him what for, Hoot said, "Because you're still in one piece." So, okay, flash ahead now. About a month later, we're on a tour of the Pacific Northwest with Elvis, and we're booked to come to play in Vancouver, Canada, in a football stadium. Well, we come to find out Colonel Parker is talking to the army about Elvis getting drafted. The army wanted Elvis to start his service, and the colonel is desperate to get him to delay until he can get more recordings in the can. He's got $1 million tiger by the tail, and he'll be doggone if anybody, even the United States government, is gonna take it away. So the army agrees to meet with Elvis and the colonel, but it's a secret meeting, and it's in Virginia, on the day we're supposed to play in Vancouver. They're not budging, because some big shot general is gonna be at the meeting. He wants to meet Elvis, and it's either meet that day or get a draft notice, I reckon. Now, most people would have just canceled the show, but most people ain't Colonel Parker. He didn't want to give up the gate from a football stadium. Not for anybody. Nobody. There was supposed to be like 20,000 people there. That was big money. So the night before, up there in Vancouver, me and the fellas get called by the colonel to come down to a little theater at midnight. It's empty, no sign of Elvis, just a stage with all our equipment. And the colonel is already there with, guess who? Frankie. And he's whispering. And Frankie's nodding his head. We don't know what's going on. Finally, the colonel turns to us and says, "I want you all to run through the show with the boys singing." And we look at each other like, what? But we don't say nothing. We do as we're told. We play. Frankie sings. And sure as I'm standing here by the end of that rehearsal, if I shut my eyes, I couldn't tell if I was listening to Frankie or Elvis. That boy was so musical he could have made a kick drum sound like a nightingale. You know what I mean? Still, we're wondering, how is this gonna work? He looks like Elvis, but he ain't Elvis, you know? But when we're finished, Colonel Parker says, "Now listen here. The boy is gonna stand way back by you. He's not to come to the front of the stage, you hear me? And no talking in between the numbers. You all just go from one song into the other fast." Then of course he added his warning. "Any of you pickers tell one soul about this, I'll show you so fast your head'll spin off your neck." He needn't have said that. No one of us was giving up the Elvis gig. We had a tiger by the tail as well. So the next night comes. The real Elvis is somewhere in Virginia with the government, and we're out in Vancouver, Canada, in a black sedan pulling up to the stadium. Frank is in the back, sitting between us, dressed in that gold satin jacket, wearing sunglasses, being real still. I couldn't tell if he's super relaxed or scared to death. I was scared to death, I can tell you that. We were told to surround him when we walked to the backstage area, and not to let anyone, not even the police, get too close to him. We hustled Frankie to the edge of the curtain, and I can hear the rumbling of the crowd out there. And I'm thinking, there ain't no way on God's green earth we are getting away with this. But when we take the stage, we look at the fans, and they're so far away, up in the stands, and there are these sawhorses on the field the Cardinals set up, telling everyone they were for Elvis' safety. We got a good 40-yard cushion. Nobody's getting close, which is just how the Cardinal wanted it. And it's still kinda light out, because this is late summer, so the spotlights aren't on, which makes it harder to see details from far away. And I whispered to Bill, one of the other singers, "What do you reckon?" And he said, "Clem, if it goes bad, run to the right. That's where the cars are." And then the announcer yells, "Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis Presley." And the place becomes one big scream. And out steps Frankie, wearing that gold jacket and a black shirt, a guitar around his neck, high on the straps, the way Elvis wore it. I braced myself for something, people booing or throwing stuff. But it never happened. They believed it 100%. And Frankie stayed back with us like the Cardinal told him. Didn't go out front where the cameras could catch him alone. And he didn't do no talking neither. Just started right in with, "Well, since my baby left me." You know, from the Heartbreak Hotel. And from that point, it might not have mattered if Frankie, me, or Pearl Bailey was singing. It got so crazy you could barely hear. And suddenly, all them kids come running out of the stands and out onto the field. And Frankie tears into "I Got a Woman" and "Rip It Up" and "Ready Teddy." We're looking at each other, smiling like bandits because it's good and we're getting away with it. And the police are chasing the kids back up into the stands, but then they come running back onto the field again. With each song, Frankie is getting more and more into it, doing some of Elvis' leg shakes and the way he thrusts his hips. A couple times I shook my head at Frankie like, "Don't do it, man, just lay back." Let's get out of here safe. But then comes Hound Dog. And I guess he couldn't help it. He just cuts loose. He pops out front and he's shaking and windmilling his arms, and he's got that sneer on his lips just like Elvis. And that did it. The crowd mobbed the field, all of them. The police were trying to hold them back. Whistles were shrieking, and people were getting knocked over. And as soon as Hound Dog was done, security hustled us off the stage, Frankie grinning and waving at the crowd like, "Goodbye, see ya." 22 minutes. That was the whole show. 22 minutes. We pulled it off. To this day, people talk about that concert as one of the wildest and craziest of Elvis' career. And his last one ever in Canada. And only the band, the Jordanaires, the Colonel, and Elvis, his own self, God rest his soul, knew what went on. And Frankie, of course, he left the band the next day. I don't think he wanted to face Elvis. Maybe Elvis didn't want to face him. Either way, he was gone, and I didn't see him again until he asked me to come on tour with him a couple years later. He was different by then, more confident, more like a star, you know. I think that concert changed him. He had a taste of it, and he wanted it for himself. Nobody said nothing about that night for damn near 60 years. But I'm 82 now, and Frankie's dead, so the hell with it. He deserves the credit. You think about all them people who became Elvis impersonators, made whole careers out of it. But Frankie was the first, and you gotta say the best. I mean, if the point is to make people feel like they're seeing the king, he's the only one who ever really pulled it off. Alright, well, that's the end of that part. The next one would be chapter 4, but I think I would need to stop for the moment. Don't worry, I have this bookmark here. Yep, I made this in high school. Just to mention it again, because I've already mentioned it on the first time I read this. Don't worry, guys. I'll still try to upload that epic first try of this kind of series. So there we have it. For now. Hope you like that one, guys. And if you do, definitely just can freely click on the follow so that you'll be notified if I'll stream this book again. Maybe let's try just making like less than 1 hour so that we can extend this book, because you know, if you can see, we're already like we're on this part of it already, so maybe we can still try to stretch it out a little bit. Alright, well, anyway, that's it for tonight. Hope you had fun, and yeah, thank you for hanging out with me today. See you guys on the next stream. Bye. Bye, guys. Bye. Thank you for listening. Bye.